Okay, so we've always been looking for alternatives, actually, even though people sort of preferred that site. And we've looked at actually a number of sites over the years, none of which has really turned out to be, some which, you know, at first glance might sound like, oh, yeah, that's an interesting idea. But as soon as you start looking at them, they didn't work for one reason or another. However, this current site, the one up by Alvern, actually didn't exist in the terms of the site. I don't know, when did we get it? You know, 10 years ago, I don't think it was there. It's basically the remnants of, of the circumferential highway, as I recall, I believe. It was state land that the town got. The school district used some of that land, you know, when they built Hills Garrison School. This is one end of a large piece, this little piece between Hills Garrison, Alvern, and 102, and somebody's house, is really the end of that long strip. So it's nice, the town owns it. We wouldn't have to go, we don't have to deal with purchasing, either in terms of cost or in terms of just the process, which we had to do to get the Ferry Street properties. And it turns out it's not just town-owned property, but it's actually a pretty good site in a lot of respects. It's, as far as we know, it's an eminently buildable site. We're not aware of, and we suspect that there aren't any problems with things like finding ledge under there or, you know, water. It's not in wetlands. There's no asbestos there. It's basically just a nice piece of land that you can build on. It's very convenient in a lot of respects. It's on a major throughway. It's easy to get to. You don't actually have to come off of 102. There's already an access road that we can use. We can just run a driveway off of that. It's a place, you know, that people can find easily. It's actually has some of the same advantages of the current site in that it's right next to the high school. It's right next to an elementary school. You can get some of the, the synergies with the schools that we would have had here, but you can also get them at that other site, especially with Alvern. I mean, there are all kinds of ideas floating around as to what, you know, Alvern might do with that library or the library might do with them. So there's some really good good reasons for putting it there. It's not a perfect site in that it's not in the center of town. It's unfortunately, you know, another, what, 8 or 10 minutes north. I don't know what it takes. Depends on traffic, maybe less. But, and that's not bad if you're in the center of town. But if you're down by the golf course and you have to drive, you're already driving 15 minutes, and then you drive an extra 5 or more is an additional burden. So we didn't really like that. But there really are no alternatives. You know, it's something that's not too bad. Traffic, somebody has brought up, because there are traffic problems on 102 at certain times of the day, but don't really believe that that's going to be a problem because the library mostly doesn't require that people go to the library during those rush hour times. So hopefully, basically, you've just got a building that's on a good access road. So the site looks good, just in general terms. So we went ahead, we got a design based on the, you know, initial approval from the selectmen. That's the design that will get presented here, and Richard will do in a little bit. We've also done a couple of other things. I mentioned the survey. We've also gone to the planning board once the design was there to went through a conceptual review at the planning board. One little hitch, which he can talk about more, is we discovered some wetlands on this property. Turns out that when they were doing the I believe this is was the cause, was just the construction when they were
when they did the drainage
when they were
on
doing
the side of 102.
And it's right along 102. There's basically a ditch there, which turns out to meet some of the meet the definitional requirements of being wetlands. So we're looking, even if you take the 50-foot buffer around those wetlands, the building that's designed here would not infringe on that. But probably when you're actually building, but it comes very close. If you're actually doing construction, you start running equipment through there and all that, we would have to go into that area a little bit. So we started the process of going Conservation Commission and going through the whole process of getting approval to do that. I mean, since the building actually isn't going to be there, we could basically leave it like it is once we're done. It would not be a permanent change. It would be a temporary use of the property, of that area. There are a couple of open questions that questions that haven't been completely resolved. One is what to do with the 2 Ferry Street properties. Because if we're not going to build a library there, we don't need them anymore. So the plan all along, even when we bought them, was that if the library weren't built there, we would simply resell them. In fact, I mean, we can always do that. They're still perfectly valid, perfectly good residential properties. We actually have recently just gotten a couple of appraisals just to sort of see where we were, just from 2 different realtors, just to see in the current state of the market, what would they be worth. They're worth substantially more than they were when we bought them. It's hard to predict because we can't sell them instantly right now. We need to retain those buildings until we get a new building, because we've sort of begun to spill it. We're using them for storage, certain library, staff activities, things like that. So we would really prefer not to just sell them instantly, but to wait until we can move into the new building, and then we can move out of those completely. So we're talking, a year and a half from now. So in an ideal world. However, the price looks pretty good. I mean, the prices look pretty good. If I recall, I just saw them. We just got the second appraisal. It was like between $450,000 and $500,000 for the 2 properties, approximately. That's approximate, but that's a reasonable sum. That's what we were kind of hoping for. So basically, those will be sold. The problem with the asbestos really isn't a problem for selling them as residential properties, because, I mean, unless somebody wants to go in and dig the whole place up, they don't really have a major problem. The absolute worst thing you'd have to do is maybe in a couple of little spots put a little extra loam over it. But you don't have to actually remove anything. You don't have to abate the asbestos any more than that. That would be the worst case. So there should be no problem selling them. The other question is about the current building and what would eventually happen to that. The deed for the land, just for people who don't know, what happened originally, it's the Hills Memorial Library. The building was built by Alfred Hills. He came to the town and said, if you would like, I will build you a library. And the town had a special town meeting, and they said, yes, we would like it. And he had some floor plans and drawings, and they accepted the offer, and he built it. He built it on a piece of land that was donated to the town by Kimball Webster, who also donated the building for the Webster School, now the SAU. He did those two he did the school, and then like a year and a half later, he did the other property, which he donated to the town. It doesn't specify use for the library, but he does say in the deed that that property needs to be retained as a town use. I'm sure he was thinking library when he said that, but it does. So we couldn't, for example, just sell the property off to somebody. If we wanted to do that, it would revert to the heir or to the estate, and the town would simply lose it. I'm not sure anybody would want to do that anyway. I mean, with that building, I certainly would not. I don't think we do. That's a wonderful building. It's one of the. I mean, I think I would call it one of the town's treasures, frankly.